Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome to another exciting episode. So in today's episode, as one of my first videos on this particular channel, as the title suggests, I really just want to talk about several things that I really wish I knew before becoming an engineer. Now, a very quick disclaimer is that I no longer work as an engineer anymore. It's been about 5 years since I left the engineering industry. I was in this industry for the better part of 5 years. So in other words, about 10 years ago, I had a career in engineering. I pursued it for 5 years and then I left it, and it's been 5 years since. And now I currently work and do another industry, specifically in the entertainment industry. So that's just another quick disclaimer. So let's just get right to this video, but real fast, I just really want to just do a very quick insert. You don't have to watch this part. I'll put timestamps so you can kind of skip forward, but it's just something I figured important to get out there is that as of the time that I'm making this video, I currently have 1 subscriber. That subscriber is not me. So I do want to give a huge thank you to that 1 person out there in the world that subscribed to this channel. If you guys are, brand new here, consider subscribing to kind of join this, I was going to say family, but at this point it's really just a team kind of, mini team kind of story situation. I do want to say is that maybe I do plan to try to make this channel more of a self-help / maybe a life story related channel where I share just my personal life experiences about just different topics. Part of this does include engineering, but a lot of this stuff is not going to be just engineering. It's also going to be things about life in general and about my current career, which right now is in the live entertainment and events industry, which is what I currently do right now. So with that being said, now let's get this video started. So the first thing that I really wish I knew before becoming an engineer, and I do really should probably specify, is that I was specifically a civil engineer, so this might be a little bit different to other kinds of engineering, but I do think that some of this is going to be universal to basically most forms of engineering. But the first thing that I kind of really wish I knew is really about the fact that the work life is a lot easier than the school life in general, and for most people. In school, you're kind of thrown, objectively speaking, a lot of different topics. So for example, from a civil engineer's perspective, you have to take classes on things such as like water, fluid mechanics, soil, earth, science, environmental, structural, transportation, highways, all sorts of different topics. But in real life, when you're actually working in the real world, it's actually going to be very niche and focused. And I'd even go to argue is that most of the stuff that you learn in school, you're not even going to use it actually on the physical job, or you will use it on the physical job, but just in a very much more practical way. And one of the things I realized is that one of the things that discouraged me from engineering at that time period was about how much workload we had in school. It was definitely very intense depending on where you go. I know in most engineering schools, it was just endless assignments, tasks, homework, exams, over and over again, and it almost seemed like there was just no endpoint in sight because the goalpost was always constantly being moved. However, in the working world, it's going to be a lot more niche where most of the knowledge that you're using is going to be very focused on a particular area within all of the subjects that you took. So in this case, instead of having to take subjects such as like water, environmental, or if you're a mechanical engineer, again, same story is that, but instead maybe you took classes on like fluids, movement, aerodynamics, all sorts of different classes. If you're a software engineer, maybe you took all sorts of different languages and different kinds of computer classes. But in the real world, it's going to be a lot more niche in the sense that you're really only going to use maybe about 20% or not even of the knowledge that you learned in the classroom on the actual physical job. And I think because of that reason, if you're someone that's currently discouraged about what's going on in the school world, if you're still a student, just know is that for most people, the working world is a lot easier compared for most people. I know it depends on your job, it depends where you go to school, but certainly I think for most people it's been the case. Now, the next thing that I really wish I knew before becoming an engineer, and I think this is one of the more misunderstood things that I've talked about in past videos before, because I do have another channel that I sometimes talk about. It's a finance channel, so that's why I started this new channel to talk about topics that I think is a little bit different from finance. but I have made videos about this, which is really about the people. And I think it's that because I come from a very, and I think this depends on where you come from, but I grew up in New York City, so I come from a very, very diverse environment. You know, I know people that, you know, ended up from my childhood going to Harvard or Yale, to people that ended up, you know, going to a pretty still relatively good college, to people that graduated community college, to people that never even finished high school. So because of that reason, I grew up with people of different education backgrounds, different races, different ethnicities, different genders, and all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that I really, really wish I knew is that the engineering demographic is not a very, very diverse world. Objectively speaking, just objectively speaking, it's mostly male. There are barely any females. You know, I'd even go to say, depending on the company, but in many cases, there are barely any minorities either. People of color are very underrepresented in this particular industry. And it's not even just that, and this is the part that's a little more subjective, but I still really feel strongly this way. I'd even go to say is that the personality types of the people that you're going to be working with are very, very similar to each other. People in the engineering world, and again, this one might vary because I've heard it's a little bit better in software engineering, but I can't comment about that because I'm not a software engineer. I'm a civil engineer, or at least I was a civil engineer for the better part of 5 years, is that it's not a very, very diverse industry to be in. So if you are someone that, you know, really loves people, if you thrive on social interaction, if you thrive on diversity, this might be a very difficult industry to be in socially to be able to fit in because of how similar everyone is. It's mostly male, there's not many minorities, it's mostly introverted, it's mostly conservative, it's very, very traditional. Nothing wrong with being in that demographic, but certainly something wrong with trying to stay with people that are just so similar to each other that it prevents you from branching out to work with other people that are different from you, people that maybe have new perspectives, new ideas, and all sorts of different things. And this is one of those things that actually threw me off guard, and one of the reasons I actually quit engineering. If a video about why I quit engineering is of interest, maybe feel free to leave a comment down below. But of course, this video is not about why I quit engineering. This video is about why, or one of the things I wish I knew before becoming an engineer. And this is definitely one of them, which is really about the social scene and the people that I really, really wish I knew before I became an engineer. Now, the next thing that I really, really wish I knew before becoming an engineer is about how important communication skills are. I think that compared to many other kinds of industries, this is definitely one where I feel like people often neglect, maybe because of the more introverted vibe that, you know, is typically found in this industry, which again, nothing wrong with that, but it's just that's basically the situation to what it is. But it's really the fact that I sometimes get the sense that there's a particular disregard for communication skills in the engineering industry, even despite the fact that it is so important, even particularly needed, to have these communication skills to be able to sell and share your ideas, especially because so many of the ideas and things that happen in the world of engineering are very difficult to communicate. And I think this is one of the things that I really, really wish I knew, because inside of the engineering world, I get the sense that there are some people that are basically just totally disregard communication skills, or don't focus on it as well, or are just really maybe just particularly just in personality type, a little bit more shy, a little bit more quiet, and they think that by becoming an engineer, they can continue doing this. And while it is true that this is probably an area of life where it's easier to be more introverted and quiet in this particular industry, at the end of the day, you still will have to go to meetings, you have to communicate your ideas, you have to talk to clients, you have to write reports, engineering reports, and you have to communicate. And I think that this is just one area that so many people in the industry disregard, yet is so important, that I really wish that they really communicated ahead of time, and that I wish I knew before becoming a physical engineer outside in the real world, for again, during that time period that I was an engineer. Now, the next thing that I really wish I knew, and this one I think is a little bit more specific to civil engineering, but I've heard stories about this in other forms of engineering as well, which is really about the work-life balance. Now, compared to many other industries, I personally feel engineering has a little bit of a better work-life balance certainly compared to things such as like investment banking, public accounting, things like that. However, individually alone itself, depending on the kind of engineering you go into. That's why I say it's very specific to civil engineering, but again, might extend to other kinds. Feel free to comment if you're another kind of engineer. I feel that the work-life balance is not always the best in this industry. Individually, so not comparing it to other industries that it's even worse, but just individually, I feel like it's not as great as it really could be. I specifically worked in the construction industry at that time period as a civil engineer, and I feel like in the construction industry especially, you are going to be talking about very long hours, lots of deadlines, early mornings, concrete pours. Sometimes you have to stay late to finish up, again, another deadline or another assignment that you might have. And I think that this is one of those things that's particularly difficult that not a lot of people really communicate, which is really about the work-life balance that you have to prepare to face depending on the particular job, but in certain select jobs that you might end up in this particular industry. And then the last thing that I really wish I knew, which I believe is the fifth thing, so we're going to cap it at 5 things. The fifth thing and last thing that I really wish I knew before becoming an engineer is about how much this industry can impact your personal health in every definition of the word health. Physical health, mental health, general health in general. And I think it's really because in this particular industry, you might end up in a job, and I was in one of the better jobs when it came to health, in the sense that I was able to work on the field. Being in the construction industry, I was able to get some fresh air, get outdoors. But even then, while I was still a student, it involved many hours of just grinding in the library, studying, lacking sleep, just grinding all day, grinding my whole life, all that stuff, that lifestyle that was going on. And I think for a lot of people, they have to really be aware, and they don't realize it until they get older. I think I'm a lot older than I look, but my age, that's a story for another day as well, is that for a lot of different people, I feel they don't realize how much the lifestyle as an engineer can really impact their health, especially if you don't really balance it with a social or just general life outside of work. Because a lot of people make their work life just basically their life. They make their work life most of their life. And I feel like while it is true that it's most of your life, it shouldn't be every area of your life. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I really wish I knew, because a lot of things related to my health at that time period, such as like eyesight, physical health, wrist, body, back, all this stuff, mental health, tiredness, energy levels, all that stuff can really be impacted by the lifestyle that you have to live being an engineer. It's not everyone, because I know some people that balance it by going to the gym, but I mean for people that don't have that particular balance, this can definitely be particularly true. But these are really just 5 things that I really wish I knew before becoming an engineer, and specifically in my case, a civil engineer, but you can really apply this to other kinds of engineers as well. So with that being said, that's pretty much what I really just wanted to cover as one of my first videos on this channel. So if you guys made it to the end, maybe leave a comment, I made it to the end, or just something along that lines. Consider smashing the like button, subscribing, hitting the bell. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.